True leadership is not measured by fear or control but by how many lives you uplift. Success is hollow if it comes at the cost of people's well-being. When you lead with empathy, you don't just build a business, you build a legacy. Stay with us till end. Aaron Mitchell had always been a dreamer, but unlike most, he had the courage to chase those dreams until they became reality. Fresh out of college, with nothing but a second-hand laptop and an idea that most people laughed at, he worked day and night to build a software platform that would eventually change the way businesses operated. In the early days, he ate instant noodles, slept on a couch in his rented office, and poured every ounce of energy into his company. It paid off. Within a few years, his startup became one of the fastest-growing tech firms in the country. Investors called him a genius, media outlets celebrated him as the golden boy of innovation, and his face started appearing on magazine covers. But as the company grew, so did Aaron's hunger for success. He believed that speed was everything, that hesitation meant losing to the competition. His days were a blur of back-to-back meetings, investor calls, and press interviews. Inside the office, his presence was both inspiring and intimidating. Employees admired his brilliance but feared his temper. A missed deadline often meant a public scolding, and mistakes were not tolerated. Aaron justified his behavior by telling himself that he was pushing people to be their best, that this was what greatness required. Late nights became the norm for everyone on the team. The office lights never went off. There were always engineers coding, designers tweaking layouts, and project managers nervously watching Aaron's schedule. He demanded excellence, but at a cost no one dared to question, not even Aaron himself. To him, this was the price of building something legendary. Yet, deep down, something had begun to shift. The man who once built his dream with passion now seemed consumed by the very empire he had created. The smiles on his employees' faces were replaced by exhaustion. The laughter in the office had disappeared, replaced by the constant hum of overworked machines. Aaron was winning in business, but without realizing it, he was slowly losing the human touch that made him start this journey in the first place. It was past midnight on a Thursday when the incident happened. Aaron was still in the office, pacing around with a cup of coffee in hand, reviewing a presentation for a major investor meeting the next morning. The office, as usual, was buzzing with activity. Designers hunched over glowing screens, developers furiously typing, project managers running between desks. Then, suddenly, everything went quiet. A loud crash echoed through the hallway. Aaron rushed out of his glass office and saw one of his brightest employees, Daniel, lying unconscious on the floor near his desk. Papers were scattered everywhere, and his teammates were frozen in shock. Panic swept through the office as someone called for an ambulance. Aaron knelt beside Daniel, feeling a jolt of fear he hadn't felt in years. This wasn't a missed deadline or a faulty code, this was a human being, one who had worked tirelessly under his leadership, now lying helpless because of exhaustion and stress. At the hospital, Aaron sat in the waiting area, his usual confidence replaced with a heavy silence. When Daniel finally woke up, Aaron went to see him. Daniel looked weak but managed a tired smile. We just wanted to make you proud," he whispered. Then came the words that pierced Aaron like a knife, "But sometimes it feels like we forget we have our own lives." Aaron left the hospital that night and drove through the quiet city streets, his mind spinning. For the first time in years, he questioned everything. Had his obsession with success blinded him to the people who made it possible? Was his company thriving at the expense of the very souls who kept it alive? That night, sitting alone in his office, Aaron stared at his reflection in the glass wall. The man looking back at him wasn't the passionate dreamer who started the company. He was a commander, pushing an army to march without rest. And for the first time, Aaron felt something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years: guilt. The next morning, Aaron walked into the office with a different energy. The same walls, the same desks, the same glowing screens, but everything felt heavier now, more real. He gathered the entire team in the common area and, for the first time in the company's history, admitted he had been wrong. "I built this company on passion," he said, his voice steady but softer than usual. "But somewhere along the way, I forgot that passion isn't fear. I pushed too hard, and last night made me realize the cost we've all been paying." The room was silent, stunned. Aaron wasn't known for apologies. He announced immediate changes: shorter work hours, mandatory breaks, mental health support, and a flexible schedule for anyone who needed rest. At first, the team was skeptical. Many whispered that this was just a temporary gesture, that Aaron would go back to his old ways once the crisis passed. But he didn't. Aaron started walking the office floor differently, not as a commander checking progress, but as a leader checking on people. He took time to sit with employees, asked about their lives, and even joined them for lunch. Slowly, the fear that had once filled the room started to dissolve. Smiles returned, conversations became lighter, and the company that had felt like a machine began to feel like a family again. The changes reflected in the work too. Creativity blossomed. People stayed late not because they were afraid, but because they wanted to. They were excited about the projects they were building. Productivity actually increased, and so did employee retention. Aaron realized something profound: when people feel valued, they give their best willingly, not out of fear but out of pride. For Aaron, this was more than a management strategy, it was redemption. He was no longer just running a company, he was nurturing a community. Years later, Aaron Mitchell stood on a brightly lit stage at a global leadership conference. The room was filled with CEOs, entrepreneurs, and young dreamers eager to hear the man once labeled a ruthless genius. But the Aaron standing there was not the same man who had built his empire through fear. His voice was calm, steady, and deeply human as he shared his story. "I thought success meant speed. I thought leadership meant pressure. I thought greatness came from pushing people beyond their limits. I was wrong." The audience leaned in as Aaron told the story of Daniel collapsing, of the sleepless nights, and of the painful realization that nearly cost him more than just an employee. It nearly cost him his humanity. He spoke of how he had changed, not just policies but his perspective. He explained how giving people balance, respect, and trust had not weakened his company but strengthened it. "A business," he said, "isn't built on numbers alone. It's built on people. And people don't thrive on fear, they thrive on care." His words were met with a silence so deep it felt sacred, followed by thunderous applause. Aaron's company had since become a case study in business schools, praised not only for its innovation but for its culture of empathy. He had grown wealthier than he ever dreamed, but when asked what his greatest achievement was, Aaron always gave the same answer: "It's not the company. It's the people we became along the way." As he stepped off the stage, he felt lighter. He knew that the true legacy of his journey wasn't the empire he built but the lives he helped uplift. The ruthless CEO was gone. In his place stood a humble leader who had learned the most valuable lesson of all: that true success is measured not by how high you rise, but by how many you lift along with you. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe for more motivational videos.